Hello and welcome back to Rambling Reviews Infinity Train. We're looking at Book 3, The Cult of the Conductor. So, here we are. It's finally out. Special thanks to HBO for HBO Max for, first of all, keeping the show on the air. Mostly, I think, for making the first episode available early, which has helped me out great. They put it up, for me, from my perspective, last night. It was geo-locked, but obviously with a VPN, that didn't matter. It wasn't... You didn't have to have an account or anything. You could literally just watch it. I don't know if it's still available now, but the first episode was put up completely for free as a special sneak preview. They actually did it in a really cool way. They put out a tweet that said if you can remember the lyrics to the song from the trailer and tweet them to them, I'll DM you the link. They didn't say what the link would be to, but then it turned out to be for the first episode. So it was pretty cool. It was like, oh, we might send you a surprise in your DMs or whatever. And then that's what they were sending out. So I thought that was really cool. Very excited. Let's see. So let's talk about the episode. It's a strong example of why we shouldn't really watch trailers for things, or analyze them, because I think this is a really good episode, and I think the only thing that doesn't work in its favor is I already kind of knew what was going to happen, but I only knew that because of the trailer. I think on its own this would have been a real surprise. Like if I'd have gone into this season how I went into book 2, not even knowing that MT was going to be for sure, that was suspected from the trailers, but like didn't know how big of a role she'd play. I think seeing Grace and Simon back in such a central role. I knew they were coming back this season, as I said. It seemed unlikely they wouldn't be handling them. But the idea of actually making them the sort of almost the protagonists of the show, bold move, and I don't think I would have predicted that. So sitting down to watch this episode, I'd have gotten quite a lot of just seeing them again. And I feel like a lot of this episode is sort of like giving you space to take that in, because you could have probably gotten to the crux of this quicker. You could have started this with them being in a car that then gets carted away, and then have them go into it and have this end with them coming across Hazel and Tuba as the cliffhanger for the next episode. But they're actually pacing it a little bit differently. They're pacing it a little bit slower than how I imagined, where this whole episode was just the setup of them getting lost 47 cars down. And then that's the setup, is they're going to have to get back to the Apex. They haven't even met Hazel or Tuba yet. I thought they were going to do it more like they did with the previous season, where the other character, in this case Hazel, was introduced at the end of the first episode. But they've paced it a little bit better, and I think that kind of is unfortunate, because I think the reason they've done that is to sort of just get you adjusted to the Apex guys are actually going to be our main characters, and let you spend some time with them outside of the story we had with them last year. I say last year, earlier this year. I imagine now there's going to be quite a wait for book 4, but we'll see. Time will tell. Anyway, I should say, if you're in any country that isn't the USA, or any country that doesn't have access to HBO Max, soz. You probably won't have access to these episodes just yet. It's a real shame that they've not found alternatives. I think it might have been better for them to cut their losses in countries that they know aren't getting HBO Max for a couple of years. So, like, for example, most of Europe isn't getting it till at least 2021. The UK, specifically, the earliest possible time for them to launch a HBO Max equivalent in this country is 2025. The reason being that they have a very long-running deal, I think until 2024, with Sky for HBO content. HBO and Sky sort of teamed up a few years back, and Sky is literally labelled like the home of HBO. And all their stuff goes straight there. No word on whether Infinity Train is going to be on Sky, or made available on Sky, at least book 3. I don't know what actually they did with book 1 and 2 in the UK either, which is funny. Obviously, I watch all of this stuff completely legally by going to America regularly, even in a pandemic. No VPNs here. I'm visiting America for a couple of hours daily. That's how that works. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So this episode kind of like spends a lot of time with the Apex guys and helps you to get to know them. And again, I think that's all a lot more functional when you don't already know what you're getting into with this season, I think. And I feel like that's going to be a problem with the next episode too, because we know the next episode is going to be spend some time with the Apex guys, and then they're going to meet Hazel and Tuba, and then through whatever sort of agree to travel together. Presumably the idea being like Hazel will want to come back and see someone, hang out with some other kids and Tuba will follow as her protection. That's my assumption. So I'm sort of like looking at that, going like, 2 episodes to set that up is probably right. So it's not really even a criticism. It's just I almost sort of go, damn, why did I watch the trailers? That'd have been a real nice surprise, and this pacing wouldn't have felt kind of a little bit like slower than it needed to be to me. I just kept thinking, you know what, this could be snippier, this could be snappier, but I don't think that's actually the case. I think this is exactly the right, for anybody who watches this outside of the fandom, anyone who watches this in a bubble in isolation, or stumbles across the show in years to come, you know, without promotional marketing material around it, they're just going to enjoy this thoroughly, and it's a really good, strong opening episode. To recap, for those who don't recall, they end up, the Apex guys head to a musical car to trash it and loot it, and then they head into another car that they found that they're all feeling fired up, and like, let's do another one. They go into another car, and it's actually the unfinished car from the previous, from 2 seasons ago now. The turtle guys are still there. They trash the place, they get into a bit of a scuffle with the turtles, and then we'll come back to this, but something happens. Like a scan line passes through everything, and the car starts to move. They send the kids off. The kids get out, but they do not. That means the car starts moving with them still in it. As predicted in my previous video, Grace uses her harpoon thing. I think I keep calling it a grappling hook, but it's a harpoon gun, of course it is, to pull herself out of that while it's moving, which leaves them stranded from the Apex and forced to sort of travel through cars to get back to them. That's the rough sort of setup we have here, and it's perfect. It's a perfect setup episode. We get a little bit of funny banter between the characters. We get to see the real horror of what it is the Apex are doing to the train. They didn't shy away from that. I'm very pleased. I really was worried they'd soften the Apex a little bit. Now they were making them the center of the focus, but I think leaning into that will make any redemption that might come work better, because it's the further you have to go to redeem a character, the more impressive it ends up being, and the more, if you can manage it, there is a line, of course you can't, there's a certain distance you could go where the character might become irredeemable, but if you're clever about it, you can make them really close to that line and then bring them back from that brink, and that can actually be a really satisfying and very entertaining character arc. So we've got a perfect setup here, really, because they hammer it home, and I mean hammer. Like the sequence where they invade the music car, which, let's talk a little bit about the music car. I don't quite get it, and I'm hoping somebody can shine some light on this for me. So there's a sign that says "Empathy Goes," and it has Jesse's name on it. Jesse Kosei, whatever his surname was. Empathy Goes, Jesse Kosei. And I'm like, what does that mean? Is it a musical by Jesse? Did he pass through this car and have influence on it? Because they are singing "When I See You, I See Me," the song he sings in the previous book. And they use it to juxtapose, because they cut between the song, the big musical number, and the Apex guys getting ready to raid the music car, and it ends with that song being not interrupted, but it finishes, and then it all turns quite sinister because the Apex kids start just trashing things. There are like anthropomorphic lights that they're just bashing, and there's those there's the comedy drama masks are being like kicked around, and like they're all trying to see how high they can get their number and how much they gained. But I don't really understand. So the Empathy Goes sign, I'm going to try and bring this up because I don't understand. If it was Empathy Goes by Jesse, I'd be like, oh, he kind of, they've attributed this musical to him. But it's not really a sentence, is it? Let me just pull it up. Maybe I misread it. I wrote it down at the time, so I don't feel like this is incorrect. But let's play devil's advocate here and actually have a look. Where is it? Yeah, it just says Empathy Goes, and there's a space, Jesse Kosei. So is that saying like it's a play by him, or a musical, I should say, by him? I don't know. I did notice if you look at the shot when you can see the whole stage, obviously all the stuff around the stage is like cardboard cutouts, like sets that you'd get in a bad theater, not bad, but like in a theater production, like they're cardboard trees. It's a cardboard sunset background, but in front of the stage is like cardboard people. And in the stage itself, if you look at the top, there's a carving, and it's Marcel from the map car from the previous episode. My Xbox just heard something I said and decided it was a command. If you heard the doo-doo in the background there, that was my Xbox going, "You'd like to sign out?" I'm like, no, I wouldn't. It does sometimes do that. My favorite is when it randomly thinks I've asked it to open Skype. So just Skype opens. Like software, like, I don't even know why it's still installed on there. Like, I might even just delete it to stop it from doing that. Anyway, it is funny whenever it happens. My favorite is when we get frustrated with, I'm giving it a command like, like play. Like, I want it to play the episode. Like, I've paused it. I couldn't be bothered to find the remote, so I'll say like, Xbox pause, and it'll pause, and then I'm saying it a bit quiet so it doesn't hear me say this, and then I'll say like Xbox play, and sometimes it'll like hear Xbox play music, and it'll just switch to Spotify. It's a mess. That Kinect thing, I didn't have a choice but to get it when I bought my Xbox One. They didn't have a version without, but it's both an absolute joy and an absolute nightmare to be able to bark at your Xbox. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. That is a thing, I should say. Anyway, what should be a thing is me getting back on topic. Yes, so in the sculpture of the stage, they've got they've sculpted in Marcel from the map car from the previous episodes in there, which is really cool. Just a little nod. But yeah, so I guess the implication is Jesse traveled through this car at some point, and that's why they're kind of responsible. But I don't really 100% get it. There's also these kind of like marshmallowy guys with like wearing two masks overlapping. Like I don't know. It's a weird car that I don't 100% understand. Like I get the theater thing. I get the drama comedy masks, and I get there's like binoculars and a fan that have been anthropomorphized. But I don't get what those marshmallow guys are. I don't understand exactly how it links to Jesse. I don't know why they're singing the Jesse song, other than that maybe he went through it. And the lights are anthropomorphized and they're really cute. They have their faces like bend over. But yeah, the guys go through and absolutely trash the place. Baseball bats, the like. It's pretty horrifying. It's all like on fire, and it's really, really like what's really horrible about it is like obviously to get out of there you have to finish the show and then bow. And they all, with the place just burning behind them, take a bow. The whole Apex gang all together, and that's what opens the doors. And it's I don't know, it's very upsetting. Then we see Grace back at their place. Like the kids are almost like giving her tributes. Like they're giving her stuff they pillaged, and he tells each of them that it's something. This is a very special one. I'll put this in a very special place, but don't tell the other kids. But she's telling that to all the kids. So she's both good with kids, but seems to be keeping them at arm's length. There's a falsity to that. I wonder if that's going to play into her relationship with Hazel, because it seems to me that she the kids are a means to an end to her. She doesn't seem to respect them very much, but she's very good at pretending to be nice to them. The same way she was kind of good at pretending to be nice with Jesse, like way more successful at that than Simon was. Simon and Lake were kind of reacted to a little bit more negatively to Simon, I think, than Grace. Or maybe that's just in my head, because we don't really see a lot of Jesse with Simon. We see a lot of Jesse with Grace, so I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up. But either way, she's definitely, there's a falseness to it. I also do like, by the way, that she has a whole big throne room. And it used to be a fitting room, and they've just crossed out fitting and wrote throne. And she also seems to have an absolute, she has like a special walk-in closet full of just knee pads, so she can sort of like slide around, I guess. Who knows? So yeah, all the shots of them trashing that place are pretty horrendous. She has an interesting relationship with the kids that seems kind of more a means to an end than an actual like fondness and affection for them, which I thought was interesting. During their trashing of the car, actually, there is one other thing I wanted to bring up, which is while they're beating down the music car, there's a moment where she once again calls him like socks and sandals or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, that reference. Can you give me a new nickname? That was a long time ago. I was 10. My mom thought they were practical." I was like, "Wait, he was 10? He got on this train when he was 10?" Him and Grace have been on here long enough to grow into young adults. Like, wow, like that's actually really horrifying, because we do know, and actually this is something I want to address, because I speculated last season maybe the different people could get on the cast from different times. No, they can't. That doesn't make any sense, and I've realized that since, because obviously we very much established that Tulip was gone for the amount of time she was on the train. So time passes in the real world and the train at the same time. Therefore, it's not plucking people out of different times, because if it was plucking people out of time, it could place them back in time to the moment they left, and that's clearly not the logic we've established. So, with that said, does that mean that at some point this season, and I want to put some speculation in here, maybe the very, very end, we could see one of Grace and or Simon get off this train and go see their family, and it would be a family that lost their child a long time ago, maybe 10 years. Like, how old do we think they are realistically? Let's go on the younger side of it. I mean, I think they're more likely to be sort of like at least sort of 17, 18, heading towards that. He's got his like stubble and stuff, so I mean, you could definitely argue even older than that if you wanted. You could definitely argue even going as high up as 20, I think, with both of them. I think it's actually probably going to be younger than that. I think it's going to, if we do find out, I think we'll find out they're about sort of 16, 17 at the youngest. If he was 10 when he got, that's still 6-7 years. Imagine your child being missing for that amount of time. I think there could be something really powerful in this, you know. And I think as well, when we do get to explore why these two were on the train in the first place, like, you know, these are the kids that didn't want to confront whatever their problems were. So either they were really, really bad, genuinely, like not just, you know, a kid who's accidentally squished their pet iguana or whatever. That these are some really, maybe some really horrible things happened that led them to the train, and they're not ready to face it. Could potentially lead to some really good drama. I'm excited. I'm pretty excited. So that is a possibility and something I'm definitely thinking of. I think the way they'll do it, if they do that, is it's contrasting. One of Grace or Simon will be there for a very small reason and just really is like taking advantage of the situation in the train, and the other one will be there because they're actually trying to avoid something from their past. You won't do that with both. It doesn't make sense. It's not very interesting storytelling. You could argue it parallels, but then you just tell the same story twice. And it's better to make them contrast, in my opinion. I think that's what they're going to do, if they go down that route. Then we have the most upsetting thing in the whole episode. And a lot of people may miss this, based on a comment I got, because I mentioned this in our Discord. When I did, it, you know, it surprised someone. They hadn't noticed it, and they just watched that episode as well, so they were in a good position to have done. Shout out to my boy Fretzel. Yo, Fretzel. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So yeah, he'd sort of just watched. My understanding is he'd... Oh. So Xbox narrator off. Turn narrator off. That's so funny. Xbox, turn narrator off. It's not doing it. Xbox, turn off. There we go. That'll do. It turned on the narrator that you use if you're like blind and you need navigation for the menus, or I guess that's what that's for. That's hilarious. So yeah, so Fretzel had seen episode 7 just before watching this and mentioned that he didn't even draw the parallel here, but it's very understandable. I think it's a really it's subtle, but when you know it's so blatant. Like, so basically, for those who are wondering what the hell I'm talking about, in episode 7 of last year when they met the Apex guys, there's a joke where Jesse's a big old dummy and he points the harpoons at his face, and like, don't point them at your face, like, why would you do that? You don't want to turn out like Lucy. It's a really like subtle, like just throwaway, like, oh, something, we had an accident already, don't do that, and you don't even think about it. And I noticed when I was watching this episode that there's a kid with an eye patch, and that kid's name is Lucy, and it's a really young kid, and the idea that that kid harpooned their own eye out, holy hell, is that dark? That's Whew, I don't want to think about that too much. That is mortifying. If that kid ever gets their number down and goes home to their parents, they don't have an eye now. Like, I just want that to sink in. A child has literally lost an eye on this train. Yeah, it's so dark. I don't know how else to... Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. It's just so absurdly dark. It's like darker than the show has ever gone. But it's so clever because it's under the radar. It's a detail you might miss. And if you miss that detail, then you're not finding out. Then you're not, you know what I mean? You're not having that. You're never gonna know, like the truth of that situation. You wouldn't even question it. It's just a kid with an eye patch. Maybe that kid had an eye illness as a young child and has grown up without that access. That maybe it's just one of those corrective eye patches. Maybe it's even a fake eye patch, like you might think. Like the kids, like with the group of Apex, they've gone for a pirate look, but there's no way that's a coincidence. That kid lost an eye at the hands of those harpoons, and that's absolutely terrifying. That's a really, really mortifying prospect. So yeah, really upsetting, super dark. There's a little reference I thought would be neat to Simon writing a fantasy novel, which fits. He's kind of super nerdy. Like we saw him in last season, like painting little figures and stuff. So he's clearly a bit of a nerd. And this sort of just adds to that. He's writing a fantasy novel that Grace has written the foreword for, and the only part of the novel she's read is her own foreword. Just a little detail to characterize him a little bit more, give you some more sense of him. You know, he seems like a bad guy, but he's got hobbies. Like, I don't know, it's weird how these things can humanize a character. Will it be enough to undo some of the damage and like some of the... It depends how they go with this season in terms of like ramping up the Apex's deeds. You know, if I was playing the guessing game, and I think I said this in my previous episode, I feel like one of these guys is going to ultimately become a villain, and one of these guys is going to be redeemed. I don't think you redeem both of them. I think one of these people is going to see the error of their ways, and one of them is going to double down hard. Which way around that is, I couldn't tell you. If I was speculating, I feel like there's something more inherently soft about Grace, but that could be that she's so good with the kids, but it's clearly fake. So maybe actually Simon's the one that's going to get redeemed, and Grace is just really the most manipulative and maniacal of them. I could see them justifying it either way, but I definitely feel like we're getting one redemption and one irredeemable villainous character. But the fantasy novel detail's neat because it sort of humanizes the character again. It makes you think of them in the context of like, oh, he had a life and interests and hobbies, and he's a person. Like, he's not just the leader of this group. He had interests. You know, I don't know. It's interesting how little details like that work. I did notice when they were in the unfinished car, and I'm sure many of you did, that there are corgis kind of everywhere now, which suggests Atticus did maintain his alliance with King Alucius. I can never pronounce that right. With the king, the Turtle King guy. I thought that was neat. We got our favourite turtle on the phone again, just complaining about everything. Like, I think his name's like Kevin or something. I thought that was hilarious. So there's only a couple of details left to talk about. So let's tackle these, and I'll leave you guys to it. First of all, the scan line. So a lot of people noticed this in the clip they released, and anyone who commented on the previous video about that or sent me a message about that, thank you. Really good observation. Anyone who spotted that, my hats off. It's actually surprisingly subtly done. But basically, for those who didn't catch it, I'll try and see if I can wing it so there's an image of it on screen right now. But it's with these videos, I make them so quickly that I don't often have time to actually set the images to what I'm saying. So I just sort of lay out random images from the episode. But I'll try to make sure I remember to put that one in here at least. But basically, while they're in the unfinished car, right before it starts to move, there's like a little green line that just flips through the screen, and it moves pretty quick. It's not very bright. It's kind of subtle. It's easy to miss, in my opinion, but it's a very, very important detail because it suggests the car is not just moving at random. It suggests someone has checked the car, found the Apex guys are in it, and moved the car. So their assumption in this episode is that it must be one. The false conductor, the little robot guy, sort of coming after them. I think not. I don't know who it is. Could be Amelia, trying to correct her previous mistakes, maybe, because. Well, we'll come back to that in a second, because that comes to another detail. I think there's a more reasonable possibility for it. Amelia is definitely an option out there. It could be something to do with the train. It could be something to do with the cat, sorry. I think there's a chance that, because we know the cat is in this series. There's a episode title that kind of gives that away. In fact, she should be within this first batch of 5. Not to spoil it for anyone, but like we saw her in the trailer, so you already know she's coming back. I think it's in the first half of the season, based on the episode title from a bit further down. So it could be the cat trying to hunt them down. I have a theory about why that might be, and I'll come to that in a second. But in general, whatever that ends up being, I don't think it's 1-1. I don't think 1-1 is that interested in the Apex because they seem to have operated for a fair while, and he doesn't seem to be doing anything about it. And I don't think he's going to start now. I also don't think that comes under his purview. Passengers behaving incorrectly, like, or out of place, like, or in an unfair way. Like, I just don't think that registers with 1-1. So yeah, I don't think we're getting that. And also they because they immediately think it's that. I know this show well enough to know that the obvious answer is probably not the answer. Like, when the characters make assumptions like that about things that could be bigger mysteries, it's usually because they want you to rule that one out quickly, because it's not that. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't think it's going to turn out to be 1-1 moving the cars around and who's looking for them. So, the two other options both have things to sort of be said about. So, Amelia and the cat both play into this in some way, I think. In what way? There's a few different options. The most likely scenario, I think, is this. I think it's possible that the Apex found and raided the cat's car maybe early on. And I think they found 2 very important things when they did that. Maybe 3. Because, well, no, okay. No, just 2. Just 2. I don't know what I thought the third thing was. What was the third thing? Oh, maybe the technology for the harpoons. That's the thing, yeah. So I wonder if they did still. But basically, I think they raided the cat's car. And I think that's where they got the device that Simon is using. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but Simon, well, you will have noticed. It's a question of whether you saw what it was designed like. Simon has a device that he's using to check where he can see where... It seems to me that he can see where passengers are on the train, or groups of them. And it's like, it looks like a dragon radar, but its design is very similar to that of the vehicle the cat was using in the first season to get around across the cars quickly. And he can flick along and he can see the cars that are ahead of them and where the people are. So when he scrolls along, he can see the car with lots of red dots in it, which I assume just means lots of passengers. Because earlier in the episode he says, there are no passengers in the unfinished car, so we should be safe for us to go in. Although you think they'd want to find passengers and convince them to join them, but hey, maybe they just want to do kids who are more malleable and they've not really been making too much effort to win over, unless they absolutely sort of come into contact with them through other means, like older characters like Jesse, because they're less likely to be won over. Maybe it's kids who are a bit more impressionable that they've been going for. They were both kids when they got on the train, so maybe that's how they've been doing it. But anyway, this device has a design aesthetic that reminds me very, very strongly of the vehicle the cat was using in Season 1. So, the theory I posit combines with my other theory, which is that the book that Grace referenced twice in the previous episode they appeared in book Season 2, to reduce confusion there, of this show. So she made 2 references to a book that sort of... She's where she got the word Apex from. It's also where she got the word null from. And this concept that they're nothing, they're zero, they don't exist, they're not real. And the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to me that while Amelia was conductor, she may have put together some sort of manifesto. And if she felt strongly that the train was just hers to bend to whatever will she wanted, that it kind of belonged to her. She also didn't seem to think much of the denizens of the train. She was quite happy to turn Atticus into a cockroach monster. She was quite happy to be bending the train to recreate the thing she wanted to recreate. without any thought for the consequences to the denizens. So I feel like what's possible, because the cat was working with Amelia, or force, whether through force or whatever, had that link. I think a copy of that manifesto was in the cat's room, along with the device that allows them to see the train, and maybe the harpoon things. Because it does seem they look kind of homemade, but there's a fair few of them, so I don't know. It seems like quite a complex technology for them to have put together themselves. So I don't 100% know where they got those from. But let's put the harpoons to a side for a second. Let's just focus on the other two. I think the manifesto and that device were both in the cat's car, and I think Grace and Simon raided that car years ago, and that's where they got those two things. And I think it's exactly why the cat doesn't like them, because if you remember from their the episode that sort of set them up for their own episode last year, the one the Lucky Cat car, I think if you look at that, her reaction to them straight away was negative. It's very aggressive, antagonistic almost. She's like, oh, it's you, and she seems to know them. I think she knew them by name. She even called her Grace, maybe. So I think that's because of that, and I think that's why the cat's pissed at them. I think that's where he got it from. And I think some people I saw speculating online that, like, maybe when Grace and Simon first got on the train, before they went the way of the conductor, as it were, that they were their companion was the cat. You know, their sort of their Atticus, their Alan Dracula, their sort of spirit guide through the world of the train was the cat. And it went tits up when Amelia showed up, basically, and got into their heads. But that would suggest they haven't just heard of, but literally know Amelia, which I feel like is probably not possible. I think it's more likely they've just found her teachings and interpreted them themselves. It seems to fit better, personally. I think that. So I don't buy they used to be the traveling companions with the cat thing. Maybe. If that is true, I don't feel like they knew Amelia, but maybe that link existed. I'm not sure. Anyway, this is truly rambling, so let me get to my point, which is that that's where I think those things came from, and I think that's why we're getting that set up, that the cat knows them. And I also think it could explain why the cat, why someone is after them, maybe trying to retrieve some of that kit, particularly that very, very useful device that Simon has that allows him to see where the cars are and stuff. You could see somebody wanting that back quite badly, to be honest with you, particularly useful to someone like the cat, who's a bit of a con artist. So yeah, there's that. I've laid that out. It's a lot of stuff to talk about. I want to very quickly talk about the logic of I love cartoon logic sometimes. So 43 seconds, I timed it, passed between the car starting to move and Grace's harpoons connecting with the car that they then pulled out and ended up on. It definitely wasn't one car a second. Cars, the visual showed cars flying by it like a few a second. There should be about 150, 200 cars between them and the rest of the Apex kids. When she, 47 cars away. I'll take it because cartoon logic, but we both know that doesn't make sense. The train would have had to be moving a lot slower for it to only be 47 cars. But hey ho. So I think that's everything. Have I covered everything? I feel like I've covered everything. I merged a few points that I had into that last big rant, which might have made it hard to follow, but there you go. So yeah, then they open the door in this sort of like what I call the sort of neon jungle car. That's where they're heading next. That is obviously, we know where they meet Tuba and Hazel from the trailer. So yeah, so far so good. I really like the setup. I like that we've separated them out. But I talked about that when we talked about the analysis, that I thought it was a good idea to separate them from the rest of the Apex kids and get them on their journey. I think there's a huge amount of possibilities of where this series could go. I'm super excited about that. I think this is a great introduction episode. I really do. Infinity Train's back. I'm very excited. I don't know what the speed in which I'm going to get these out is. I'm going to do as many as I can, I promise. I'm really hyped, but like at the same time I have to be realistic about how many of these I can actually do. I would love to just take a day off, which ironically I do have one tomorrow, and just watch an episode, record one of these, and just do the 5 that are out, and then just chuck them up over the weekend or something like that. But I just know from experience how easy it is to get burnt out doing these, and then they get less good, and I'd rather them take a little bit longer for me to get out, where I can take time to watch each episode, process it, think it through, maybe rewatch it and make notes. Because I think details like noticing Marcel, for example, the Marcel detail in the artwork, in the stonework, I only think you do that, you know. Like, you only notice that on a second viewing. Like, I wouldn't have picked that up the first time. So, yeah, I've talked for way too long looking at the time. Wow. But thank you guys for listening, as always. I am going to try and keep up with these as fast as I can. But again, like I said, quality and being able to pick up on details and things like that, I think it's really important. So I really want to be able to do these properly, not rush them. And previously there was never a time constraint on them because they were always old-ish episodes when I got to them. So it was always like, oh, if somebody wants to rewatch these with me. Whereas now there's this kind of pressure of, hey, there's 5 episodes out. There's probably going to be 3 more out in a week's time. So do I get through these 5 episodes in 7 days in order to be able to watch those 3 the week after? Like, maybe. Yeah, that's going to be a challenge. But I'm hoping to get these out as soon as possible for you guys. So hopefully at the very least every other day. But it'd have to be quicker than that if I wanted to get through all 5 of these before the next 3. Who knows? Anyway, I'm just going to go with it and do them as quick as I'm able to. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. As always, if you've not yet done that, subscribe for more of this content. Or stick around for Chris and I are going to be taking a look. We're going to be doing some dipping into Steven Universe every now and then. And of course, our main podcast, Nothing But Static, still available over on all the usual places, iTunes and Spotify and Google Play. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you have got access to it, please do go subscribe to HBO Max and watch Infinity Train, because they deserve the support. There's merch as well. Some people have been buying the merch just to sort of help support the show. Not a bad idea if you really like it as I do. I'm hoping they'll bring out some more relevant merch, because all the merch they've got at the moment is all kind of season 1 based, like shirts with Atticus on it and stuff. And I'm kind of hoping for something maybe from book 2, or maybe even this, depending on if this keeps going. Because right now, I mean, I think this is a better opening episode than the previous book's opening episode. It's just a cleaner setup. They have the benefit, of course, of it being partially set up last year, so you don't need to do as much establishment for the Apex and what they believe and what they think, and like what the thinking is behind them calling something a null, for example. Speaking of, one note I forgot to quickly talk about. Oh god, I was wrapping up. Here we go. Very quickly, Simon had decided he wanted to keep one of the nulls that was also a light. I saw some people online saying, like, does that mean he's secretly protecting nulls? No, I don't think so. I think it actually, if anything, goes to show the very opposite, that they are really objects and toys to him. I think that's what they were demonstrating with that scene, nothing more. But there you go. So thanks very much for listening. I'll speak to you guys in hopefully a day or two's time when we talk about episode 2 of Infinity Train, book 3, Cult of the Conductor. That episode is called The Jungle Car? Yeah, I've been calling it the Neon Jungle Car, but we'll go with the Jungle Car. So yeah, I'll speak to you guys next time when we discuss the Jungle Car. Still want to call it the Neon Jungle Car. Neon Jungle Car.